So if you're ever unable to join us, or if you want to share them with people who aren't located in Louisville, they are available there. We post them on our YouTube channel, so check them out. Today, it is my pleasure to welcome Kyle Culver, Solution Architect. Welcome, Kyle.
So this presentation has been given a couple of times in different flavors. There's some additional information to it. So if you saw it at the BTL Town Hall or Innovation, or there's an ITLS, it kind of has some of this. So I would like to start with asking you questions, because I know that as I go through it, we'll try to touch on some of the questions. So I'd like to start to see if anybody has any questions of things other than what is it and why should I care, that I can try to make sure that I touch on as we go through. So open it up, and does anybody have anything they'd like to know about blockchain? All right. I can start. We can do questions at the end. So, okay. So this will go through the high-level overview of what it is. In very generic terms, it helps to give a contextual example. So we'll use Bitcoin as the example. So this has been out there since 2009, and kind of run through that, and then kind of transition into where it is within the fintech industry. So within the financial technology segment, they've done most of the research in this space, and so I think it's a nice introduction into what other industries are doing, because other industries are behind that, but are definitely catching up. And then to kind of talk about some healthcare domain examples, and then go into ways to stay connected if you're interested in continuing with this conversation. So the big takeaway that I wanted to kind of lead with, so that everybody's on the same page, is this paradigm shift from centralized to decentralized. And so as we're going through the examples, feel free to ask questions, but that's kind of one of the bigger shifts architecturally when we're talking about blockchain and what it is it's moving really from these centralized systems. Certainly if you think about Bitcoin and the fact that it's an autonomous system, that's a peer-to-peer network, allowing people to exchange value, versus a centralized bank doing that. And so that's kind of the shift, and what that does is that opens up a lot of green space, a lot of innovation, a lot of tech advancements within the space. They try to solve the new problems that come with a new technology, as well as the autonomous solutions that can come from that. So we look at Bitcoin and say, hey, this runs by itself. All the stakeholders are incentivized to participate. We start looking at civic things. What are ways in which we can create solutions for the community that can run in an autonomous way? And so, all right, so blockchain comes from the name of the distributed database that sits underneath of it. So that distributed database has been around, since I believe the late 80s or 90s, and it's the block space chain. So what that really is this block of transactions and how the data is stored, and each block is linked to the prior block. And so what that does when they have a code, and we have a slide that kind of breaks that out, but it shows over time that becomes an immutable record, because you can't change something back in the past without going and changing everything that's happened since then. And so it's these blocks of transactions that support this data structure and this peer-to-peer network. And so if you think about the way that Bitcoin's set up, and all these peers now have a copy of this ledger, and that ledger is from the beginning of Bitcoin, the amounts and transactions that have occurred as values have exchanged from one entity to another. And so when we're looking at that, we say, okay, well, that's the data that's been shared, and now everybody has a copy of it. And so the trust and the security that you hear about it comes from that sharing and transparency, because everybody has a copy. It's really hard to add fraudulent records to. And also the way that it's built, it becomes very apparent if those fraudulent records are added. The other piece to that is now that you have this peer-to-peer architecture and there's not a centralized place, you have a need for consensus. You have to have everybody agree. And so the common example that's given is like a double spend. So if you only have $5 in your account, and you reach out and say, I'll give this $5 to 2 people, right? But you only have $5 to give. The consensus mechanism is what decides which person gets that $5. So it's a new problem to solve that you really don't have within the centralized system, because it answers that question. You see that public key cryptography is another piece that's really used within this space to anonymize and secure that information that's out there. So you can see the values that are exchanged, but you can't see some of that other information. And so the neat thing about Bitcoin and blockchain is that it took a lot of these technologies that have been proven and weren't new and put them together in a way to enable something that really is an elegant solution to a problem. And so the other piece that you'll see, so the consensus mechanisms, there's a lot of different choices within this space. The proof of work is the most common one. This is Bitcoin and Ethereum. The proof of stake is another one. So I don't want to get into all the different details of that. But basically, what it is a way for this group to agree on the transactions and the output of that logic. And there's also a cost to participate and contribute to this, as well as a reward. So that drives the economic value of the system, because the miners, the people that are making this consensus decision, are given a reward should their block be chosen to be the next block. And then the other piece you'll hear is the smart contract. And so the actual logic of, if I'm giving this value to this person, what's the logic underneath? And so with Bitcoin being around since late 2008, 2009, that is very limited. So the amount of logic that you can do has been intentionally limited in order to limit the risk. As Ethereum's kind of opened that up and said that we're going to do more with logic. And so with that, there becomes more risk and more learnings of how do you execute this logic in this very decentralized space. And I know I'm talking a lot of more technical stuff, but some of the advantages when you're thinking about it at a high level and kind of putting the technology aside is you end up having an indelible record of this data. So we're looking at use cases and trying to say, hey, would this fit or would this make sense with this new technology? Looking at the indelible record and the value that would provide. So some of the earliest use cases that you see within healthcare are within Estonia, where they're taking the records that are the healthcare records that they have persisted, and they're taking a hash code of that, and then they're making sure that it hasn't been changed by producing a hash code and even sharing it in the newspaper. And so there's just a mathematical formula to that one-way cryptographic hash that says, hey, this data hasn't been changed. And so that they can have some trust in the fact that people aren't going and doing fraudulent stuff to those health records over time. And that's what the DOD is looking at it for too, is they're looking at their information that they have, a way to kind of put that hash out there and have some trust in that data. You also the transparency factor, and so when you look at the financial industry, the fact that they have to trust, right, they're going to be able to exchange value with these other banks as they're doing these transactions. When we look at their cross-border payment, a lot of the friction that comes in exchanging your currency to another bank in another country is these banks have trust relationships that they have to navigate to get to that bank. And so they're going from one hop to another hop, and with each of those hops you get friction and cost. And so they're saying, hey, if we put blockchain in there and we share this information and we have trust in the ledger and the data that they have, now I don't really have to trust that other bank, but I can use this centralized ledger for that trust and be able to exchange the value. And so what that does is disintermediates. And so when you have a company that's sitting in between, and its whole value is to be an intermediary between these different actors, now blockchain can potentially remove that intermediary. So that's where people are looking at it and saying that, hey, it's a disruptor in these different spaces because we have very costly intermediaries. So if we want to look at an example of that, and this kind of gets into that block, these different blocks you'll see are all linked to the prior block. And so the block is a collection of the transactions as well as a link to that prior block. And so you can see if you change this, now it would have a different output, and that output would not be in the same proof of work. And so you can see how these link together kind of over time. If you're looking at this, you know that data hasn't changed by looking at the full record. And since it's shared as with Bitcoin with millions of different computers on it, it'd be really hard to go back and change something from the past. And you'll always see or consistently see Alice involved in the example of them using the blockchain to exchange this value versus using that trusted intermediary. so I didn't want to talk about some of the risk with it, because I think blockchain definitely gets a lot of hype, and everybody is pointing at it to be a solution for things that it might not work well with. One of the big things, because it's a peer-to-peer, solution, that its value has a networking effect. And so adoption is one of the biggest keys and barriers to a successful implementation. So getting all these people to agree that we're going to use blockchain for this solution is where its value is going to come from, as well as standardization. So we see a lot of interoperability use cases where people are saying, hey, we're going to share information. Well, if you don't have standards for your information, you're running the same problems you currently see, trying to exchange information and agreeing to what that information looks like. There's also, even though Bitcoin's been around for a while, the newer implementations like Ethereum are still pretty immature. And so they're still iterating on the protocols and the different things in place in order to make that a more secure environment. And so with that coming, what's the governance of that? How do we get new releases out to all the different people on the network? You'll see that with Bitcoin, they have some really neat features that aren't getting adoption, and they're looking for that 95% adoption to be able to roll that out. So you have some features that are kind of sitting back that are waiting on the group to approve to be able to be implemented. So when we're looking at what blockchain implementations are out there, some of the trade-offs, trying to figure out how you have governance around release schedules and things of that nature. And then security and privacy, because everybody has the data. So if we're saying each of us, is a node in this network, and we all have this, collection of data, PII and PHI are things that you don't want to store there, even if they're encrypted, because they still have the risk that in the future somebody could hack that, or they could be a brute force or quantum computing or other ways in which to be able to unlock that at a future point in time, even if it's secure now. And so what you'll see when we look at this Gartner hype cycle is that we're really at that peak of inflated expectation. We're looking, and we don't know kind of where we are until we start seeing those issues and seeing some of the realistic expectations being set. The other piece to think of is the fintech hype cycle. We expect healthcare to have a different one that's maybe a little more muted with less highs and less lows before we reach that plateau of productivity. There's also a discussion around how long we believe this is going to take. Some people are thinking that this is kind of a 2-year deal to get to that plateau, and then other people are saying that it's a 10-year deal to get to that plateau. And so until some of these things start rolling out and becoming live, it's going to be really hard to figure out exactly where the maturity is and some of the trade-offs that are going to come out of that discovery within the trough. So looking at that timeline and thinking about where fintech is, they were calling 2015 the year of research, 2016 the POC, and then 2017 with the early adopters. And so a lot of companies are already saying that they're going to have pilots or very limited betas out there in production this year. Visa has done research in this area and partnered with a company called Chain, and they're looking to see what kind of advantages they could see in the space. NASDAQ is also doing research in the space to see how they could adopt it. The Australian Stock Exchange has some other things. So there's a lot of these companies that are doing very high volume financial transactions that are looking at how they can leverage this in order to kind of reduce costs. And it's more of an administrative thing to move to this peer-to-peer architecture, which is very resilient, and they have a need also to update their infrastructure anyway. And so they're using this as momentum for the financial industry to kind of move off some of the old infrastructure and move to a newer technology that enables them to use better interoperability, should they change, as well as when we're thinking about the component model and having logic at a very small component level. Those contracts that are out there are that component, and so they can easily move to that versus the monolithic systems that they have in their centralized structures today. And so when we look at healthcare, so we're shifting the lens over to where could we see this play out in healthcare. This is IBM's outline of where they could see it playing out. So you'll see a lot in the electronic health record. And so thinking of, you have this health record, you go to multiple providers, you have multiple different inputs into that, and it being the source of information to go and have a complete health record is how it's being positioned. the barriers to that, or more of a definition around that, that would be, I guess, the better analogy I've heard is a library card catalog. So when you think of that, blockchain would be this card catalog that had the reference point to all the pieces of data about you, and then it would give you a reference point of where to go find the book. So that big detailed piece of information. And so it's not, because that information needs to be shared, it's not the best place to put a big data set at this point in time, but it can store that reference of where to go find the data. And it could share that with everybody, and so that if you do go to a particular provider, they would be able to go and find all the different reference points and pull that all together. You also see kind of that provenance and traceability that we were talking about with knowing what the assets are, as well as they're looking at the logistics. So when we look at pharmaceuticals, looking at where the different compounds are coming from and how they're assembled, and understanding that there's different legislation around that. And the corollary outside of healthcare is Walmart's doing this for some of their things, and trying to understand where their different products are coming from, especially from a food perspective, in case there's a recall, so they understand, hey, where exactly did it go, and they have this ledger that can be shared, externally with the different partners that they may have. I think the other neat piece is we're talking about how to look at claims information. So if you think about the claims process, and the fact that we have a contract, as patients, we have a contract with our provider, right? And our provider has a contract with the insurance company, and then we have a relationship with that insurance company as well. There's an idea that you can put all those contracts and represent those on the blockchain, and then from there, that could be an industry utility, a mechanism in which to adjudicate that claim, as long as in the ledger would be your accumulations. And so the fact that instead of you having to have this negotiation with your provider, and your provider not really knowing all the details, so currently you can have claims that have a 90-day or 180-day claim or process time, so you don't really know what some of those accumulations are. And so this could have that shared ledger, and then also the contractual details, so the provider knows not only what your cost share is going to be, but also what the value that they're expecting as far as the breakdown from the insurance company and yourself. So one of the other use cases that I think is neat, Eli wrote a paper about this, and was talking about how we could look at solving the provider data directory issues that we have. And so if you think about it from the perspective of we as a payer have all this provider information that we need to maintain, and so do all the other payers. How can we centralize this into a shared data set to where if we find an update, we go and communicate out that update, and now everybody's aware of it? And then even third parties could play into that and make us aware of the different provider updates that need to occur. Since it's all public data anyway, it kind of reduces some of the hurdles. The other neat twist to this, when you start thinking about what's going to drive adoption, now you could put incentives behind this. And so collectively, you could say these payers are collectively going to pay $100 for an update, and then they'll split it between them, and then that's going to drive adoption of people wanting to update and crowdsource this data, and end up with a lot cheaper overall cost of us maintaining provider data than what we currently have. The other piece is kind of going to that claims life cycle, and so looking at it when we say each of the nodes, and so the nodes being the participants would exist, so providers could have them as well as health plans and the government. And then they would have the actual data shared, and so that would be your accumulations. And then the contracts being, your contract, your relationship with that product and that insurance company, as well as the provider relationship with the insurance company. And so if those are all shared, and we look at that, now everybody has the same view and can exercise those contracts without bumping up against, the real-time service that Humana may provide to adjudicate a claim. They could write a product that sat on top of this infrastructure and do that immediately as long as the data was available. The other neat thing when we look at it is when we look at how things are audited. So instead of auditing things for a specific period of time, in the past you could audit across the entire system in real time. And so you could start spotting trends a lot earlier and easier and react to those, and look at things a lot differently than trying to audit things, with this past look. The other piece, and then you have data provenance as well. And so when we're looking at claims and who was responsible for what, now if the government did have access to this shared ledger, they would be able to have visibility into where this information is coming from and kind of spot some of the different things there. I'm trying to think of and then the salt process. And so when we're looking at the information that they need, and then the next slide kind of goes into the information that could be shared, but some of that information, is so unique that it could have a privacy impact. And so how can we salt that information, put fictional records out there on the chain to kind of throw off the fact that you may know by a relationship, if somebody had a very rare medical event, go out and deduce what their transaction ID is and kind of figure it out that way. But salting could really help with that as far as sharing information across. So this is when we're talking about what is actually the data that could be shared and what does that transaction look like. This was an example we put together to kind of paint that picture of you have this one-way hash that takes it and makes a token out of who the health plan, the provider and patient are, and then comes so that's stored as well as you have different identifiers for the type of claim, different services. So you can see how if this information was shared, and then you kind of that card catalog analogy of where you could actually go get the additional information should you need it, and this would drive a lot of costs down and reduce friction because now you have a centralized utility that's sharing this information versus when you think of a provider could have to work with 70 plus payers. So currently their systems are either going through a clearinghouse that's interacting with all those payers or they're interacting with those payers. And so having a utility that's kind of, you publish it here and it has the data, reduces a lot of those integration concerns that you can have the other way. So just wrapping up here, kind of talking about the ways you can stay engaged. We do have an internal working group that's looking at blockchain, kind of discussing the things that we have internally going on, direction and different pieces of research. We have a buzz group. There's also within Louisville some discussions with starting a meetup. And then if you're actually looking to get hands-on with the technology itself, you can do one of these things. They have the D app within Ethereum that you can code and kind of go out there. There's some pretty good tutorials on how to do that, as well as the open source projects on Hyperledger. There's a very broad set of open source activities that are going on, different research there, and then being a miner and setting up a wallet, so kind of engaged there. So with that, I'll turn it over and see if anybody has any questions.
So how do you prevent security issues? For example, let's say someone wants to export and change their DH&A balance to the blockchain, and if it's built with the code that there's an exploit that can fix it, if you can't get users to adopt it as well.
So just to repeat, so you're saying if there was an exploit that was actually deployed and adopted by that code, now how do you back that out, right? And so they've seen this, and this was one of the problems that Ethereum had with the DAO hack is the fact that it wasn't done on purpose, but there was a vulnerability that was exploited. And so what they did was once they noticed that, they went back in time and said, we're going to start from the time that this occurred with the ledger, and then we're going to go back and use that as the starting point and then fix whatever that vulnerability is and then move forward. I think the vulnerabilities are going to happen, like they're hard, they happen, right? And so it's the governance around it to how do we go back and change it and make sure that value is exchanged. So what you could see is escrows. And so instead of giving somebody their money right then, escrowing that for a period of time to ensure that you had time to react should a vulnerability be discovered, and money go to the wrong place.
And a blockchain network could work within like a private network with a limited number of machines and hardware to act as those consensus figures.
Yes. So that's kind of where the banks are going with, hey, we're going to form a consortium. R3 is probably the biggest, but now they've kind of forked off into other ones where they're saying, hey, let's all get together and let's go solve a particular use case or set of use case. And we're going to use a permissioned blockchain.
Could EDIS and STARS be some of the use case? Because I know that that's been proof where that data came from, and I didn't see that listed in
I think so. I mean, as well as being able to go and get the information. And so the fact that, there's different HEDIS measures, as I understand it, for that doctor having a full picture. And so if they, if you, for instance, haven't had a colonoscopy, they might not know about that information. However, they may get dinged for it from a HEDIS perspective. So being able to pull together that picture is another thing that the workflow systems probably the doctors would be using would connect and be able to pull the information to be able to present that, knowing what the different rules around HEDIS, MACRA, all those different things are. But yeah, I definitely think that's I think that the sharing of health information is likely one of the farther off, especially like a consumer facing, if you think of like Mint for healthcare. Like I think the technology is going to have to do a lot of maturation before companies are going to put that type of thing on it, even if it is a link to go find it. I think you're going to see things like the provider data use case where it's public and it's not a very high risk, and if we fail, well, we've been struggling with that for a while kind of thing. And then you're going to see the B2B financial transactions kind of piggybacking off of what the fintech things have done. Questions?
So blockchain is the ledger of value, right?
Yes, so I think, and that's a good one. So blockchain is that underpinning distributed database. When people are talking about it normally, they're talking about the set of technologies and saying, because a lot of, even the banks with Corda and some of their consortium have moved away from actually using a blockchain distributed database, and they found another structure that meets their use case better. But yes, that's where it comes from.
So I'm just thinking like from a monetary policy perspective, like money's expanding the track. And so, when you've got something like Bitcoin, and there's a ledger of value associated with that, like how does that work? Like if money is expanding and contracting the supply of it from a blockchain perspective of Bitcoin, how does that fit into that picture? I don't know.
I mean, so, and I'm not probably the best to speak to all the economic drivers to make it the autonomous system. I know that you have, a tradable value, and I believe that Bitcoin now is over gold as far as what the value of it is. And Ethereum, I believe, is getting close to like $20 for one of the ethers. And so that's all based on, what people, the supply and demand, right? So what people are willing to pay for that. And then the cost of mining and the cost of that consensus mechanism, as well as storing the information, is driving, the value in the exchange. The other piece that I think is neat about Bitcoin is they've set a max to how many Bitcoins will actually be distributed. So there's only going to be 21 million Bitcoins or something to that effect. They're actually reducing over time what miners make for mining that block.
This is the first time I've heard in-depth kind of blockchain, so forgive my naivety here. But the peer-to-peer, distributed database, the rules by which you live in that system are agreed upon, as the adoption. When it comes to healthcare and implementing a blockchain scenario, who is the peer-to-peer? Who is the one peer to the one peer? Isn't the purpose to remove the trusted source? So,
Right.
What happens when an insurance company says, let's do blockchain? Who is that peer? Is it the member? Is it the member and the provider? And all the trusted sources kind of get wiped out. I forgive my naivety, but I'm kind of hard to see implementing something like that would be good for a trusted source.
So I think within the healthcare space, certainly when we're looking at the health record, so everybody has their own piece of that view. And so like health, our company may have these records and these data assets, whereas EHR has different data assets. And then there may even be other, pharmacies and different folks like that have different data assets. And so when we're looking at, as an industry, we all have these different data assets, as well as we all have a need to get other people's data assets to complete our view and be able to provide a better outcome or be able to do better analytics, the things around that. And so you can see it as more the mechanism to be able to share information and to be able to exchange it between these different entities that currently are silos and really tough to get in and get data. And so you have these really big companies that have a lot of data that work with each other, but have a very high cost to be able to go and get very specific information. The other piece that I think is neat, a lot of the problem that we have with data is some of that semantic validation. So we can connect to a different system, we can agree to fire, but what you put in there, there's many ways to represent data. I heard that there's like 20 different ways that we can represent date of birth. And so from there, being able to say, I'm going to put a standard validation, or I'm going to pay for information, but it has to fit my semantic validation. So you can kind of see how those economic drivers can now be put there in order to be able to share that information. I definitely believe there's a risk to that. As far as if you're the person that has all the data now, what is your motivation to give that data away? So I think that's where it gets into what's the economics around it, and are you getting, are you able to monetize that data? Is it worth it for your exchange? There's other things that most of the players have a need for information as well. So no one has the complete picture. It's valuable to the EHRs to have some of the information that the insurance companies have, as well as vice versa. And so trying to say, hey, I may pay you $1 for this record, you may pay me $2 for this, and so that exchange, and not all information is probably valuable. But I think that the concern is real as far as, what do we give up and what do we lose? Because if you think now my whole value is being that intermediary and holding that data, if I open up that data, what's that going to cause? I think we'll see that play out as it matures.
So how do financial institutions tie into the blockchain? So I'm thinking as a payer, the blockchain is, to be clear, by the account service, sort of a ledger, a transactional piece. Is it independent of financial institutions, or how are they incorporated to take this transactional value and incorporate it into the real value, like US dollars?
So what they can do is, like, physically, they would have servers on their premises, or that they own that would connect to services or servers of the other entities. And then they would agree, what the underlying structure of that currency that represents the dollar or whatever it is underneath. And then they would say, okay, well, now we're all connected, so we're all sharing this information of the ledger and what our balances are. And so from there, they can start exchanging balances back and forth and say, hey, I'm going to give you 100 or maybe 2, and kind of be able to keep the difference. So, and then reconcile, over what period of time they're going to reconcile. So it's more that they have visibility and they don't trust each other, right? So that everybody now has a copy of that information, and it's not just a direct connection with someone I trust. And so the onboarding to the one is a lot cheaper than, direct connecting to the many.
So how do you quantify the value of data as a tangible asset to incentivize people to share this information? How do you look at that number to say, we're going to give you $100 for it?
I mean, I think it definitely depends on the asset itself. I mean, we're currently doing it, right? I mean, we sell information for research. Other people have data that they sell. I believe it depends on what return you believe you can gain from that data, right? So if we look at, our population and said that we have some very sick members, and we believe we get whatever this data, their medication list, for example, if we get that information, we believe we can then trend by X%. So now then you can start doing the math of, okay, of these members, right, and I can pay this value and still be able to realize it. I think it's probably one of those things that'll cost more at the beginning to get people onboarded, and then after that, after people are already sharing information, that cost will be less to be able to continue to share.
So with Bitcoin, you can pretty much like proof of work, like algorithm in terms of transaction. You know, the more Bitcoin there is, the higher the transaction cost is. In terms of blockchain for like our own data, would there be any sort of transaction costs associated with that? Or how do you make sure that everyone's
I mean, I think there has to be a cost to participate. Right? There has to be a cost to write the data in order to pay for the infrastructure that's going to support it. So I think that that's going to have to be there. However, because Bitcoin's a public system, they make that very resource intensive, and so you're wasting a lot of electricity really to get that consensus output. Whereas you see there's other consensus mechanisms like proof of stake or proof of elapsed time to really just, it still has a cost that you're waiting, but it's not burning through the same amount of resources, and fit better with some of the internal use cases. You could even, I think some of them have like a more of a round robin type approach where it just rotates who gets it.